As of today, I was looking at the view counts for these videos. Eala is in first place among all 29 of these top Australian Open players. I think at the time she had about 100.
Welcome back to Golf Vibes, your ultimate destination for the most explosive, unfiltered stories from the world of professional tennis. If you thought the 2026 season was going to be predictable, think again. We are barely 3 weeks into the new year, and the tennis world is already completely on fire. The Australian Open just wrapped up in Melbourne. The trophies have been handed out. The confetti has been swept away. But the real drama? That is just getting started. And at the center of this swirling vortex of ambition, pressure, and raw determination stands one name: Alexandria Eala. The 20-year-old Filipino sensation did not just participate in the Australian Open. She turned Court 6 into a full-blown cultural phenomenon, sparked a media frenzy across Southeast Asia, and then dropped a series of declarations so bold, so audacious, that tennis analysts are still picking their jaws up off the floor.
Melbourne.
Eala is number 49 in the world, and she's really captivated the hearts and minds of the Filipino community.
We are talking about a player who is not content with being a feel-good story or a regional hero. She wants the throne. She wants the top 20. And she is willing to risk absolutely everything: her health, her ranking points, her sanity to get there. But Eala's story does not exist in a vacuum. While she is plotting her assault on the rankings, a teenage revolution is unfolding right before our eyes. For the first time in 17 years, 5 teenagers have blasted their way into the third round of a Grand Slam simultaneously. We are witnessing the birth of a new generation led by the fearless Evic, the prodigious Mira Andreeva, and a cast of hungry young stars who flat out refuse to wait their turn. The old guard is being put on notice. The future is not coming tomorrow. It arrived in Melbourne with a forehand winner down the line and a scream of defiance. So buckle up, tennis fanatics, because we are about to take you on a comprehensive, no-holds-barred journey through Alexandria Eala's blockbuster month, the insane scheduling gamble that has everyone talking, and the teenage takeover that is rewriting the history books. This is the story the mainstream media will not tell you. This is Golf Vibes, and we are pulling back the curtain on everything. Let us set the scene. It is January 2026, and Alexandria Eala walks into the Australian Open carrying the hopes of an entire nation on her slender shoulders. The Philippines has never had a top 20 singles player, never had a Grand Slam champion, never had anyone crack the code at the highest level of women's tennis. Eala is the chosen one, the anointed savior, the girl who is supposed to change everything. No pressure, right? She arrives in Melbourne ranked number 49 inches, the world career high territory. Yes, but the kind of ranking that gets you noticed without guaranteeing you anything. She is on the bubble, too good for the developmental tours, not quite established enough to waltz into the main draws of the biggest events without sweating through qualifying rounds. It is tennis purgatory, and breaking out requires something special. A signature win, a deep run at a major tournament, a statement that simply cannot be ignored. The draw comes out and Eala finds herself matched against Alicia Parks, the big-serving American who can blow opponents off the court when her first serve is clicking. On paper, it is a winnable match. Parks is dangerous but inconsistent, and this is exactly the kind of match Eala needs to win if she is serious about that top 20 goal. But what nobody predicted was what would happen before the first ball was even struck. Tournament organizers scheduled the match on Court 6, one of the smaller show courts at Melbourne Park. They thought they had it figured out. They were catastrophically, embarrassingly wrong. Hours before the match was scheduled to begin, something unusual started happening. The queues started forming, not the polite, orderly queues you see at Wimbledon, but long, snaking lines of humanity stretching past the food courts, wrapping around the merchandise stands, clogging the pathways between courts. Filipino flags appeared by the hundreds. People were wearing them as capes, waving them like weapons, turning the entire precinct around Court 6 into a roaring sea of red, white, blue, and yellow. The energy was electric, almost aggressive in its intensity. Tournament officials started getting nervous. They tried to manage the flow, but it was like trying to hold back the ocean with a bucket. By the time Eala emerged from the tunnel, every seat was filled, every standing room spot was claimed, and people were 3 deep on the upper railings, hanging over fences, doing whatever it took to catch a glimpse of their hero. Players on adjacent courts complained about the noise bleeding over. This was not a tennis match anymore. This was a movement. And then the match itself began, and it was absolutely everything the crowd could have hoped for. Alicia Parks came out firing, unleashing those trademark bombs from the baseline, trying to end points before they even started. But Eala, giving up considerable height and power, refused to be intimidated. She dug in. She fought. That whipping lefty forehand of hers, the one that draws endless comparisons to a young Rafael Nadal, started finding angles that had Parks scrambling, sliding, and lunging in desperation. The rallies were brutal, attritional wars of patience and precision. Eala was mixing up her spins, going heavy topspin to push Parks deep, then slicing low to drag her forward, then ripping a flat ball down the line when the opportunity presented itself. It was a tactical clinic. If Melbourne was her coming-out party, then Miami earlier in 2025 was where the legend truly began to take shape. Alex Eala walked onto those Miami courts and proceeded to dismantle careers with the calm, methodical efficiency of someone who had been planning this all along. She dispatched Jelena Ostapenko, a Grand Slam champion with one of the most explosive forehands in the game, as if she were hitting warm-up balls. Then came Madison Keys, a powerhouse American who hits the ball with the force of a freight train. Gone. Dispatched. Sent home early. The upsets were stacking up. Social media was paying attention. The tennis world was beginning to whisper the name Eala in conversations that just 2 weeks earlier would have seemed completely absurd. And then came the moment. The quarterfinal. Iga Swiatek, world number 2. A player who at her best makes world-class opponents look like they have never picked up a racket before. A player who dominated the tour for years, won multiple Roland Garros titles, and carries herself with the absolute confidence of someone who knows she is the best player in the world on most given days. The match should not have been competitive. If you asked any tennis analyst before it started, they would have told you Eala would gain valuable experience, learn a lot, and probably lose in straight sets. The script was written, the outcome was predetermined. Nobody told Alex. What unfolded over the next 9-0+ minutes was the kind of tennis that makes you grab the person sitting next to you by the arm and shake them because you simply cannot contain the electricity running through your body. Eala played the match of her life. She was aggressive from the very first point. She attacked Swiatek's second serve, something players ranked 50 places above. Eala struggled to do consistently. She moved like she had springs in her feet, tracking down balls that should have been winners, turning defense into offense in the blink of an eye. She matched Swiatek's intensity point for point, game for game. And when the final ball landed in the net, off Swiatek's racket and the umpire called the match, the scoreline read 6-2, 7-5 inches favor of Alexandria Eala. The stadium erupted. The internet went nuclear. The Philippines collectively lost its mind in the most beautiful way imaginable. With that single victory, Alex Eala did not just win a tennis match. She broke a 104-year-old barrier and became the first Filipina in history to crack the WTA Top 100. 100 million Filipinos finally had a tennis superstar to call their own. She became the proof of concept that every young girl across Southeast Asia had been waiting for, that you can come from outside the traditional tennis corridors of power, come from a nation the sport has historically overlooked, and not just compete with the best players in the world, but beat them on the biggest stages when it matters most. The rest of the 2025 season confirmed that Miami was not a fluke, not a one-week wonder, not a story that would evaporate under the pressure of sustained excellence the WTA Tour demands. Eala kept winning. She claimed her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara, battling through a tough draw with the kind of clutch performances that mark players destined for greatness. She ground through the European clay court swing, learning and adapting on the surface that swallows young players whole. She arrived at the US Open and etched her name into the history books yet again, becoming the first player representing the Philippines to win a Grand Slam singles match in the Open era. By the time the 2025 season drew to a close, Eala had bulldozed through the rankings to land inside the top 50, won the Philippine Sports Writers Association's Female Athlete of the Year award for the second consecutive time, and established herself as one of the most compelling young forces in the sport. But here is the thing about truly exceptional athletes. They do not rest on their greatest hits. They do not frame the newspaper clippings and spend the off-season admiring them. They get back to work. And that is exactly what Alexandria Eala did. Because if 2025 was her introduction to the world, 2026 has been her loud, unmistakable announcement that the introduction was just the opening act. The 2026 season has been a continuation of everything that made 2025 so breathtaking. Only now she is doing it with the added weight of expectation, the added scrutiny of being a known quantity, and the added pressure of defending the points and the reputation she worked so hard to build. And she has handled every single bit of it with the composure of someone twice her age and with 10 times the experience. The WTA 1000 Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships was the latest evidence that the tennis world has a new force to reckon with. She showed up in Dubai, and the Filipino fans showed up right alongside her in numbers that turned the stadium into something resembling a home match. Because here is the truth about Alex Eala's fanbase. They are not just supporters. They are a full-blown phenomenon. They are passionate, organized, impossibly loud, and they travel. They will cross oceans and deserts to fill a stadium and cheer their champion. The sight of thousands of Filipino flags waving inside a Dubai tennis stadium is not something the tennis establishment was remotely prepared for, and it is one of the most powerful and beautiful things the sport has seen in years. In Dubai, she delivered the kind of performance that silences doubters and rewards believers. She swept through the draw with authority and then faced world number 8 Jasmine Paolini in a match that showcased every dimension of her extraordinary game. Paolini is not someone who gives you anything. She is relentless, crafty, and mentally bulletproof. But Eala came out swinging, hit her spots with laser precision, and dismantled Paolini with a masterclass in modern women's tennis. The crowd went absolutely wild. Social media exploded, and every tennis pundit who was still hedging their bets on Eala being a one-season wonder had to quietly update their takes. Her Dubai run brought her to a quarterfinal showdown with arguably the most compelling matchup possible, Coco Gauff. The Eala-Gauff connection is one of the most fascinating subplots in tennis right now. These two were doubles partners. They know each other's games intimately. Off the court, they are close. On the court, they are fierce competitors. And their quarterfinal in Dubai had exactly the kind of storyline energy that produces must-see television. Coco got the win because Coco Gauff is Coco Gauff, and she is one of the best players in the world. But the real story was what happened during and after that match. The crowd, already crackling with the electric energy that Eala matches generate, was split between two fan armies, who both showed up with everything they had. The noise was unreal. The atmosphere was the kind that makes players remember a match for the rest of their careers. And then, Coco did something genuinely beautiful in her post-match interview with the stadium still buzzing. She laughed and acknowledged the army of Eala supporters who had been screaming their lungs out all night. She said that even when she was up in the match, she knew Alex could come back at any given moment because she had seen her do it before. Then she looked out at the crowd and said she wanted to thank Alex for bringing a whole new demographic to the sport, adding that it was genuinely great for tennis as a whole. She quipped that whenever the crowd was cheering for Alex, she just pretended they were cheering her name, and if you cannot beat them, you might as well join them. The crowd absolutely lost it. And that moment, that generous, funny, genuine acknowledgement from one of the sport's biggest stars, captured in a single soundbite exactly what Alex Eala represents for tennis. She is not just winning matches, she is growing the sport. She is bringing new people into stadiums, onto streaming platforms, and into tennis conversations who were never there before. She is expanding the universe of global tennis fandom in a way the sport has desperately needed. And even her fiercest competitors can see it and celebrate it. That is not just a great tennis story. That is a great human story. And we are only just getting started.